3 months after the Battle of Sol, the Galactic Assembly Chamber looked different. New representatives filled seats that had been empty before. Species who had stayed neutral were now asking to join discussions. The mood had changed. Ambassador Quan stood at the podium again, but this time he was not defending human actions. He was proposing something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. The Galactic Defense Coalition, Quan said, his voice carrying through the chamber, a formal alliance of species dedicated to mutual protection. Not to conquer, not to expand, but to defend each other against aggression. Beside him stood Sue, a human negotiator who had spent weeks crafting the proposal. She had worked with representatives from dozens of species. Finding common ground, building trust, the document she created was a masterpiece of diplomacy. Every member species keeps their sovereignty, Sue explained. You control your own worlds, your own laws, your own future. But if any member is attacked, all members respond. Together we are stronger than alone. Counselor Vexara was the first to stand. The Althenian Republic joins this coalition. We should have stood together against the Krath years ago. We will not make that mistake again. Ambassador Sylvan stood next. The Valora join. Our debt to humanity can never be fully repaid, but we will stand with them and all who seek peace. One by one, species rose to join. Some were the volunteers who had fought at Sol. Others were species who had watched the battle and felt inspired. By the end of the session, 37 species had committed to the coalition. It was not everyone. Many species still refused. They feared Krath retaliation. They did not trust humanity. But it was a start. And it was more than had existed before. The coalition needed a military leader. Someone who understood combat. Someone other species trusted despite their fears. The choice was obvious. They promoted Captain Day to Admiral and gave him command of the First Joint Fleet. Day stood in the new coalition headquarters, looking at the diverse crew around him. Humans worked beside Valora. Althenians coordinated with species whose names he was still learning. It was chaotic. It was complicated. It was beautiful. June had a new job. He was training mixed species tactical teams, teaching aliens how humans fought, but also learning from them. The Valora had excellent sensors. The Althenians were masters of electronic warfare. Every species brought something valuable. The key is not making them fight like humans, June explained to a group of Althenian officers. It is finding what each species does best and combining those strengths. Lieutenant Minho was put in charge of training operations. He was patient and creative, finding ways to bridge vast cultural differences. Some species found human directness rude. Others struggled with the physical demands of human training. Minho adapted to each group, finding methods that worked. General Tarvin of the Althenian military became one of Minho's best students. His species had been defeated by the Krath years ago. That defeat had haunted him. But now, learning human tactics, he felt hope return. We were taught to avoid risk, Tarvin told Minho during a training session, to minimize casualties above all else. But that made us predictable, easy to defeat. Your people taught us that some risks are necessary, that protecting our values matters more than individual safety. Minho nodded. But we also learned from you. Humans can be too aggressive sometimes. Your people's caution balances our recklessness. Together we are better than either alone. Hana established coalition medical standards. Each species had different biology, different needs. She created protocols that worked for everyone. She also started cultural exchange programs. Valora healers taught humans about emotional medicine. Human doctors taught aliens about trauma surgery. The first real test of the coalition came quickly. The Krath attacked an Althenian colony world, a small raid meant to test the coalition's resolve. In the past, the Althenians would have faced it alone and likely surrendered. But this time was different. Admiral Day received the alert and immediately ordered coalition forces to respond. Human ships, Valora vessels, Althenian cruisers, all jumping to the colony together. The Krath raiders were shocked to see such a large response. They expected the Althenians alone. Instead, they faced a united fleet. The battle was over in less than an hour. Every Krath ship was destroyed or captured. High Commander Drax watched the reports from his homeworld. The humans had created an alliance. His enemies were organizing. This was dangerous. The Krath Empire had always relied on fighting isolated species one at a time. United opponents were much harder to defeat. Then something unprecedented happened. Fleetmaster Kurzak requested a private meeting with Drax. The two Krath officers met in a secure room. Kurzak's face was troubled. "I cannot do this anymore," Kurzak said quietly. "I have fought humans. I have seen how they treat prisoners, how they help the weak, how they value honor over conquest. We Krath say we are strong, but we are just bullies. I am ashamed of what we have become." Drax's eyes narrowed. "You speak treason." "I speak truth," Kurzak replied. "And I am not alone. Many Krath soldiers question our path. We joined the military to protect our people, not to murder innocents. The humans showed us there is another way." Before Drax could respond, Kurzak left. He gathered those who thought as he did. Not many, but enough. They took a small ship and fled Krath space, heading toward Coalition territory. When Kurzak's ship arrived at Coalition space, human patrols intercepted it. The Krath officer broadcast his intentions. He wanted asylum. He brought intelligence on Krath military plans. He was willing to face trial for his crimes if necessary. Admiral Day faced a difficult choice. Accepting Krath defectors could provide valuable intelligence, but it might also be a trick. He consulted with the Coalition Council. The debate was fierce. Finally, they voted to allow Kurzak and his followers to stay, but they would be watched carefully. Kurzak met with Day personally. The two warriors stood facing each other. So much history between their species. So much blood, but also a strange respect. "Why did you come here?" Day asked. "Because you showed me what real strength looks like," Kurzak replied. "Not conquest, not domination, but protecting others, standing for what is right even when it is dangerous. That is true courage. My people have forgotten this. Maybe here I can remember." Day studied the Krath officer for a long moment. Then he nodded. "You will have your chance. But know this. If you betray us, I will deal with you personally." "I would expect nothing less," Kurzak said. News of Kurzak's defection spread across the galaxy. It sent a message that terrified the Krath leadership. Their own warriors were abandoning them. The Empire's strength was built on fear and loyalty. If both were breaking down, the Empire itself might crumble. The coalition grew stronger each month. More species joined. Joint military exercises improved coordination. Cultural exchanges built understanding. The coalition headquarters became a place where former enemies learned to work together. Human influence spread through coalition space. Not through force, but through example. Species began adopting human concepts. Duty, honor, standing up for the weak. Ideas that humans thought were universal but were actually revolutionary to many aliens. Sue watched it all with satisfaction. She had helped build something that would last. An alliance based not on fear but on shared values. It was not perfect. There were arguments, cultural misunderstandings, political conflicts, but it worked. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the first coalition assembly was held. Representatives from 43 species gathered under a new banner. The symbol showed a human and a Valora standing together, hands clasped. Unity through diversity. Admiral Day was asked to give the opening speech. He stood before the assembly, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. So many species looking to humanity for leadership. It was terrifying and inspiring at the same time. "We did not seek this role," Day began. "Humanity wanted only to live in peace among the stars. But when we found evil, we could not look away. When innocents needed help, we could not refuse. Not because we are Deathworlders, but because we are people who believe in something greater than ourselves." He paused, looking around the chamber. The galaxy begged for someone to stand against tyranny. We answered. But we did not answer alone. Each species here chose courage over safety, chose principle over convenience. Together we proved that the strong have a duty to protect the weak. That is the foundation of this coalition. That is what we will defend. The assembly erupted in approval. Sounds of agreement from species across the galaxy. Humanity had given them something precious. Hope. After the assembly, Day returned to the Resolute. The ship had been fully repaired and upgraded. She looked better than ever. He walked the corridors, remembering all that had happened. The desperate plea from the Valora. The battle that started everything. The defense of Earth. So much had changed. Hana found him on the observation deck. She stood beside him, looking out at the stars. Around them, coalition ships from a dozen species moved in formation, a sight that would have been impossible a year ago. Do you think it will last? Hana asked. The coalition? Day considered the question. The Krath will test us again. There will be challenges we cannot imagine. But yes, I think it will last. Because it is built on something real, not just military necessity, but genuine friendship. The Krath Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol system. 150 warships, their weapons powered and ready. High Commander Drax sat in his command chair and looked at the tactical display. This would be over quickly, but the human defense force was waiting. Admiral Yoon had positioned her ships carefully throughout the system, not clustered together where they could be destroyed easily. Spread out, hidden, waiting. All ships engage at will, Yoon ordered. Make them pay for every meter. The Krath fleet moved forward confidently. They expected the humans to defend near Earth itself. Instead, human ships struck from the asteroid belt. Railgun fire lanced out from hidden positions. 3 Krath destroyers exploded before they even knew they were under attack. Drax frowned. Minor losses. Continue the advance. The Armada pushed deeper into the system. They passed Jupiter, the gas giant looming huge on their screens. Suddenly, objects emerged from Jupiter's thick atmosphere. Dozens of them. Missiles, kinetic kill vehicles, mines. All launching at once from hiding spots in the clouds. The Krath point defense systems fired frantically. They destroyed many of the weapons, but not all. 15 ships took direct hits. Explosions bloomed across the fleet. Drax gripped his chair. These humans were clever. Reform the fleet, Drax ordered. Increase speed. Get past their traps. Near Mars, Captain Day waited with the Resolute and 12 other human warships. His ship was still damaged from Valora, patched together with hope and welding. But she could still fight. Here they come, June said quietly. The Krath Vanguard appeared on sensors, 40 ships racing toward their position. All ships execute pattern Delta, Day ordered. The human vessels split into 3 groups and began a fighting retreat. They would slow the Krath advance, inflict casualties, and fall back. Classic delaying tactics. The battle near Mars was brutal. Human ships traded fire with Krath warships at close range. The Resolute took hit after hit. Armor plating flew off in chunks. Internal fires broke out. Crew members died at their posts. Bora's fighter squadron launched from the Resolute's damaged hangar. Wolfpack was down to 8 fighters now. They dove into the Krath formation like hawks among crows. Her pilots flew maneuvers that would kill most species from the G-forces alone. Stay together, Bora called to her pilots. Hit and run. Do not get pinned down. Her fighter screamed past a Krath battleship, missiles launching from her wings. The battleship's shields flickered but held. Return fire caught her wingman. The fighter exploded in a ball of flame. Wolf 3 is down, someone said over the comm. Bora felt the loss like a knife in her chest. But she kept flying, kept fighting. That was what Wolfpack did. The human defense line near Mars finally broke. Too many Krath ships, too much firepower. Day ordered his group to fall back toward Earth. They had done their job. They had bought time. In Earth orbit, Hana coordinated evacuation of the civilian stations. Thousands of people needed to get to the surface before the Krath arrived. But the evacuation was moving too slowly. Too many people and not enough shuttles. We need more time, Hana said over the comm to Admiral Yoon. You will get it, Yoon replied. Just keep moving. A plasma strike hit Station 7, the section where Hana was working. The blast threw her across the room. Alarms screamed. Air began venting into space. Hana grabbed an emergency suit and sealed it quickly. Around her, wounded civilians cried out for help. She could evacuate, save herself. The station was dying. But Hana was a doctor. She started pulling people toward the remaining shuttles, one by one, dragging the injured, carrying children, refusing to leave anyone behind. Jin was a civilian engineer. He had volunteered for a special mission. He piloted an old cargo freighter loaded with nuclear warheads. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. But someone had to do it. His hands were steady on the controls as he accelerated toward the Krath fleet. Every weapon in the Armada turned toward his freighter. They recognized a threat when they saw one. Plasma beams and missiles filled the space around him. Jin thought about his family on Earth, his wife, his 2 children. He was doing this for them, for their future. He hoped they would understand. The freighter took hit after hit. Systems failed. The hull began to break apart. But Jin kept going. Just a little further. Just a bit more. He reached the center of the Krath formation and triggered the warheads. The explosion was like a small sun. The dreadnought at the center of the formation vaporized instantly. 3 other capital ships were caught in the blast and torn apart. The shockwave damaged dozens more. Across the human fleet, crews watched the explosion in silence. They knew Jin. Many civilians were following his example. Old ships loaded with explosives. Volunteers willing to die to protect their world. High Commander Drax stared at his tactical display in confusion. These humans kept sacrificing themselves. It made no sense. Self-preservation was the most basic instinct. Yet humans seemed to value their cause more than their own lives. Fleetmaster Kurzak stood beside Drax. He had fought at Valora. He understood humans better than most Krath. They fight for each other, he said quietly. For their families, their species. They see death as acceptable if it protects what they love. It is weakness, Drax growled, but doubt crept into his voice. The Krath fleet pushed through to Earth orbit. They had lost 30 ships to human defenses. More than expected, but they still had overwhelming numbers. Drax ordered the bombardment to begin. Krath bombardment ships moved into position above Earth. Their weapons charged to fire. Down on the planet, billions of humans watched the sky and waited. June coordinated the planetary defense systems. Missile batteries, railgun emplacements, energy shields. Everything Earth had built over 5 years of knowing they were not alone in a dangerous galaxy. Fire at will, June ordered. The sky above Earth lit up with defensive fire. Most of the orbital strikes were destroyed. But not all. Some got through. Cities burned. Buildings collapsed. Millions died in the first bombardment. The humans responded with fury. Every human ship still capable of fighting surged forward. The Resolute, barely holding together, led the charge. They crashed into the Krath formation with reckless abandon. This was not tactics anymore. This was rage. This was vengeance. Day's voice echoed across all human channels. They attacked our home. They killed our families. No mercy, no retreat. Make them pay. The human counterattack was devastating. Ships rammed Krath vessels. Fighters crashed into bombardment ships. Crew members boarded enemy vessels through breached hulls and fought hand-to-hand in the corridors. The Krath had never seen anything like it. These humans would not stop, would not surrender. Even when their ships were on fire and falling apart, they kept fighting. Then something changed. New ships appeared on the sensors. Hundreds of them. The volunteer coalition had arrived. Valora ships, Althenian cruisers, vessels from 24 species. They were not strong fighters. Most were civilian ships converted to carry weapons. But there were so many of them, and they had traveled across the galaxy to stand with humanity. Ambassador Sylvan's voice came over the comm. Earth, we are here. Tell us where you need us. Admiral Yoon felt tears streaming down her face. They had come. The galaxy had come. Welcome, friends, welcome. The coalition ships moved to support the human fleet. Together, they pressed the attack. The Krath formation began to collapse under the combined assault. High Commander Drax watched his tactical display with growing horror. He was losing. The mighty Krath armada was being beaten by humans and a collection of minor species who should have been easy prey. Fleetmaster Kurzak spoke quietly. Commander, we should withdraw, regroup, we have lost too many ships. Drax wanted to refuse. To order his fleet to fight to the last ship, but he was not stupid. If he lost the entire armada here, the Krath Empire would be vulnerable. Other species might rebel. All ships retreat, Drax ordered. The words tasted like poison. The Krath never retreated, but today they had no choice. As the Krath ships jumped to hyperspace, Drax broadcast a final message. This is not over, humanity. We will return stronger, more prepared, and next time nothing will save you. On the Resolute, Day slumped in his chair. The battle was over. They had won. But the cost was terrible. 3 million humans dead, 12 cities destroyed, 2/3 of their fleet reduced to wreckage. Hana made it to the bridge. Her medical coat was torn and covered in blood. She looked exhausted but alive. We saved most of the civilians on the stations, she said quietly. Not all, but most, Day nodded. He could not speak. The emotions were too strong. Relief, grief, pride, all mixed together. Across the galaxy, billions of aliens had watched the Battle of Sol. They saw humanity fight with a determination that seemed impossible. They saw volunteers from peaceful species stand against the Empire. They saw that the Krath could be beaten. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Assembly Chamber was full. Representatives from 200 species filled the seats, talking loudly among themselves. At the center podium stood Ambassador Quan, the human diplomatic representative. He waited patiently for the noise to die down. The chamber finally grew quiet. Quan looked around at the faces watching him. Some showed curiosity. Others showed fear. Many showed suspicion. "Honored representatives," Quan began, "I come before you today to explain humanity's actions at Valora. We did not seek conflict. We responded to a cry for help that no one else would answer." A tall alien with green scales stood up. "You started a war. The Krath Empire is now mobilizing their entire fleet. Your actions have made the galaxy less safe." "The Krath were already at war," Quan replied calmly. "They were committing genocide against the Valora. We simply chose to stop them. And now they will target others," another representative said. "This is what happens when Deathworlders get involved in galactic affairs." Quan felt his anger rise but kept his voice level. "The Krath have been targeting species for decades. How many colonies have they destroyed? How many civilizations have they conquered while this assembly talked and did nothing?" The chamber erupted in arguments. Some agreed with Quan, many did not. The debate raged for hours. Quan stood at the podium and answered every question, defended every human action. It was exhausting work. Finally, Councillor Vexara stood up. She was an Althenian, a species that had suffered under Krath attacks years ago. Her voice was strong and clear. "I wish to share something with the assembly," Vexara said. She activated a display that showed images. Horrible images. Krath atrocities committed against her people. Cities burned, civilians executed. "The Krath did this to my world 20 years ago. We begged this assembly for help. You told us to negotiate, to find peace, to be reasonable." The chamber grew silent. Everyone knew the Althenian story. They had surrendered half their territory to save the rest. "The humans did what we could not," Vexara continued. "They stood against evil when it was dangerous, when it was risky, when everyone said not to. If more species had such courage, the Krath Empire would not be so powerful today." Several representatives nodded. Others still looked worried. The assembly took a vote on whether to support humanity against the coming Krath attack. The measure failed. Most species voted to remain neutral. They were too afraid of Krath retaliation. Quan left the chamber feeling tired. He had done his best, but it was not enough. Humanity would face the Krath alone. He sent his report to Earth, knowing that his people were already preparing for war. On Earth, Nari sat in the intelligence center staring at her screens. She was an intelligence officer, and what she saw terrified her. The Krath were assembling a fleet 3 times larger than the one that attacked Valora. 150 warships, dreadnoughts, carriers, battleships, all heading towards Sol system. She compiled her report and sent it to the Admiralty. The message was clear. The Krath were not coming to fight. They were coming to destroy. To make an example, to show the galaxy what happened to species who opposed the Empire, Earth began preparing. Orbital defense stations were built. Weapon platforms were placed around the Moon and Mars. Every ship in the human navy was recalled to defend the home system. But everyone knew the truth. It would not be enough. The Resolute limped back to Valora Station for emergency repairs. Tay worked around the clock, fixing what he could. But the damage was severe. The ship needed months in a proper shipyard. They had days at best. Captain Day walked through his ship, seeing the scars of battle everywhere. Burn marks on the walls, patches covering holes, empty bunks where crew members had slept. He remembered each face, each name. The weight of command pressed down on him. Hana found him standing in one of the damaged corridors. She said nothing at first, just stood beside him. They had been friends for years. She knew when he needed silence and when he needed to talk. "Do you regret it?" she asked finally. "Coming to Valora?" Day thought about the question. "No, we saved an entire species. But I regret the cost. All those people who died, and now Earth is in danger because of what we did. Earth is in danger because the Krath are evil," Hana said firmly. "We just gave them a reason to show their true nature sooner rather than later." June joined them in the corridor. He carried a datapad filled with tactical analysis. His face was serious as always. I have been studying the Krath fleet movements. They are bringing everything. This is not a battle. This is an extinction event. Then we will have to make them regret it, Day said. Earth has defenses they have not seen yet, and we know how to fight dirty. Ambassador Sylvan contacted the Resolute. The Valora wanted to help. They were sending every ship they had to join the defense of Earth. It was not much, maybe 20 small vessels. But it was everything they had. You do not have to do this, Day told Sylvan. The Krath might come after your people again. You stood with us when no one else would, Sylvan replied. We will stand with you now. That is what allies do. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Humanity had defeated a Krath fleet. Now the Empire was coming for revenge. Most species watched and did nothing. But some watched and felt something stir inside them. Hope, courage, the possibility that the Krath could be resisted. Counselor Vexara worked in secret. She could not convince the Assembly to help humanity officially, but she could share intelligence. She sent encrypted messages to Earth, providing information on Krath tactics, weaknesses, and fleet movements. It was not much, but it was something. On the Krath homeworld, High Commander Drax planned his attack. He was more intelligent than Warcloth X. He understood that humans were dangerous, so he brought overwhelming force. He would not make the same mistakes. Drax recorded a message to be broadcast across all frequencies. Humanity, you have 1 week to surrender. Disarm your fleets. Give up your weapons. Submit to Krath authority. If you refuse, Sol system will be destroyed. Every planet, every station, every human. We will make your species extinct. The message reached Earth. The government officials debated their response. Some suggested negotiation. Others suggested evacuation. But the military had only one answer. Earth's response was broadcast by Admiral Yoon herself. She stood in uniform, her face hard and determined. High Commander Drax, humanity does not surrender. We do not bow to bullies. We do not abandon our homes. You want Earth? Come and take it. But know this. Every meter you advance will be paid for in blood. Your blood. We are Deathworlders. This is our world, and we will defend it. The message echoed across the galaxy. Some species called humans insane. Others called them inspiring. The Galactic Assembly held another emergency session. The question was simple. Would they help humanity? The vote began. Representative after representative voted no. Too risky. Too dangerous. Better to let the humans face their fate alone. Quan watched the votes pile up, his heart sinking. Then Counselor Vexara stood up. She had been working behind the scenes, talking to other species who had suffered under the Krath, reminding them that if humanity fell, the Krath would grow bolder. I call for a second vote, Vexara said, not on whether to officially support humanity, but on whether individual species can choose to aid them if they wish, a volunteer coalition. This time the vote was different. Many species still voted no, but enough voted yes. The Althenians, the Valora, 24 others. Small species, peaceful species, species who had been victims before and did not want to be victims again. Quan felt tears in his eyes. It was not an army, but it was something. Humanity would not fight alone. The Resolute received the news as they prepared to jump back to Earth. Day read the message about the volunteer coalition. It listed the species who agreed to send ships. The numbers were small, but the gesture was huge. They are coming, Day told his crew. Not everyone, but some. The galaxy is watching. Now let us give them something worth seeing. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, racing toward Earth. Behind them, volunteer ships from across the galaxy began their own journeys. They did not know if they would arrive in time. They did not know if they could make a difference. But they knew they had to try. High Commander Drax received reports of the volunteer coalition. He laughed. A few dozen ships would not change anything. The Krath Armada would crush humanity and anyone foolish enough to stand with them. His fleet jumped toward Sol system. 150 warships against humanity's small defense force and a handful of volunteers. The odds were overwhelming. Victory was certain, or so Drax believed. He had never faced Deathworlders defending their home. The Krath fleet moved into attack formation. Warcloth X ordered his ships to spread out and surround the 5 human vessels. It was a standard tactic. Overwhelming firepower from all sides. It had never failed before. But the humans did not wait to be surrounded. The Resolute and her sister ship suddenly accelerated to speeds that made the Krath sensors flicker with confusion. The human vessels dove straight into the Krath formation like spears. On the Resolute's bridge, Captain Day gripped his chair as the G-forces pressed against him. His crew felt it too, but they were built for this. Humans evolved on a heavy gravity world. Their bones were dense. Their muscles were strong. What would crush most aliens only made humans uncomfortable. Weapons range in 10 seconds, June called out. His fingers danced across his console, targeting their command ships. Fire when ready, Day ordered. The human railguns spoke. They did not fire energy beams like most galactic weapons. They fired solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. Simple physics. Mass times velocity equals destruction. The Krath shields were designed to deflect energy weapons. They had nothing to stop solid metal moving at a fraction of light speed. 3 Krath battlecruisers exploded in the first salvo. The metal slugs punched straight through their shields, through their armor, through their reactors. Warcloth X stared at his screens in shock. 3 ships gone just like that. He opened channels to all his vessels. Return fire. Kill them all. Plasma beams and missiles filled the space around the human ships. The Resolute's shields flared bright as energy weapons struck them. Alarms screamed warnings. Damage reports flooded in. Forward shields at 60%, someone called out. Keep going, Day said calmly. Tay, give me everything the engines have. In the engine room, Tay was already pushing the reactors beyond their safety limits. He was an engineer who believed machines could always give a little more. Warning lights covered his board, but the engines kept running. Humans built their ships tough because they knew they would get damaged. Getting shot was part of the plan. Bora led the fighter squadron called Wolfpack. Her voice came over the comm. Wolfpack, with me. We are going in. Her fighters screamed toward the Krath carrier at the center of the enemy formation. Krath point defense weapons opened fire. Explosions bloomed around the human fighters. 2 went down, then 3 more. But the rest kept coming. Krath commanders watched in confusion. These fighters should have broken off. Any sane pilot would retreat when facing such fire. But the humans kept coming, kept diving deeper into the kill zone. They flew through clouds of shrapnel that would have shredded lighter craft. Human fighters were built like tanks. Thick armor, redundant systems. They could take punishment and keep fighting. Bora's ship took 3 direct hits. Her cockpit filled with smoke. Alarms screamed. She ignored them all and kept flying. Missiles away, Bora said. Her remaining fighters all launched at once. The carrier's shields flickered and failed under the barrage. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull. The Krath fleet began to scatter. They had trained to fight enemies who valued their lives above victory. They did not know how to fight people who accepted damage as the cost of winning. Fear spread through their ranks. They are retreating, June said with surprise. No, Day said, watching his tactical display. They are regrouping. Thex is trying to figure us out. He opened a channel to all human ships. This is where it gets hard. Stay focused. Trust your training. The Krath fleet formed a new formation, tighter and more defensive. They stopped trying to surround the humans and instead created a wall of firepower. Warclaw Thex had realized his mistake. He would grind the humans down with superior numbers. The battle became brutal. Human ships took terrible damage. The cruiser Defiance lost its main engines and drifted out of formation. The cruiser Valiant took a direct hit to its bridge. 17 crew members died instantly. In the Resolute's medical bay, Hana worked frantically to save the wounded. Her sick bay was full of crew members with burns, broken bones, and worse. She moved from bed to bed, her hands steady even as the ship shook from weapons fire. A plasma blast breached the outer hull near the medical bay. Krath soldiers poured through the hole, their weapons raised. Hana grabbed a medical laser scalpel in one hand and kept working on her patient with the other. The first Krath soldier aimed his weapon at her. Hana threw the scalpel. It was not designed as a weapon, but she was a Deathworlder. Her throwing arm had evolved to hunt animals on Earth. The scalpel struck the soldier's weapon, knocking it aside. Security teams arrived seconds later and drove the boarders back. Hana never stopped working. Her patient lived. So did 3 Krath soldiers who surrendered when they saw her treating their wounded comrade. She could not stop being a doctor even during combat. On the bridge, Day made a decision. They were winning, but too slowly. The Krath would eventually wear them down through sheer numbers. He needed to break their will to fight. Tay, Day said over the comm. I need ramming speed. There was a pause. Then Tay's voice came back. "You have it, Captain." The Resolute turned toward the largest Krath carrier. Every weapon on the carrier opened fire. The human cruiser's shields collapsed. Armor plating glowed red and began to melt. But the ship kept coming. "Brace for impact," Day said calmly. The Resolute struck the carrier like a hammer. The heavily armored human ship sheared through the carrier's flank, breaking it in half. The carrier exploded in a ball of flame. The Resolute emerged on the other side, battered and burning but still fighting. Warcloth X could not believe what he saw. No one rammed ships anymore. It was suicide. But the human ship survived. It was still shooting, still moving, still fighting. For the first time in his long career, Thex felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. The Krath formation broke. Some ships continued fighting. Others began to pull back. The unity of their fleet shattered against human determination. June coordinated the final push. Human ships, damaged but deadly, pressed their advantage. More Krath vessels exploded or surrendered. The battle turned into a rout. 6 hours after it began, the battle ended. The surviving Krath ships jumped to hyperspace, retreating from the system. Warcloth X went with them, his fleet reduced by nearly half. On the Valora homeworld, billions watched in stunned silence. The humans had won. 5 ships against 50. It should have been impossible. Day surveyed the damage to his fleet. The Defiance was crippled. The Valiant and the Victory were destroyed. Hundreds of his people were dead. The Resolute looked like it had been through a shredder. But they had won. Ambassador Sylvan's face appeared on the screen. The Valora was crying, their blue glow pulsing with emotion. "You saved us. You actually saved us." "We did what we came to do," Day said simply. Hana came to the bridge, her medical coat covered in blood, human and alien both. She looked exhausted but satisfied. "All the wounded are stable. We lost 83 crew. Another 100 are injured." Day closed his eyes for a moment. 83 names he would have to remember. 83 families he would have to contact. The price of victory was never cheap. A priority transmission came through from Earth Command. Day opened it, expecting congratulations. Instead, the Admiral's face was grim. "Captain Day, you need to come home immediately. The Krath Empire has declared war on humanity. They are mobilizing their full war fleet. Intelligence says they are targeting Earth itself." The bridge fell silent. They had won the battle but started a war. The Krath would not forgive this defeat. They would come for revenge. Day looked at his damaged ship, his exhausted crew, and the stars between them and home. They had answered the call when no one else would. They had saved the Valora, but now their own people needed them. "Set course for Earth," Day ordered. "Best speed." As the human fleet prepared to leave, Valora ships moved to escort them. Ambassador Sylvan had made a promise. The Valora would not forget what humanity did. If Earth needed help, they would answer. It was the least they could do. The conference room aboard the human diplomatic station was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Day stood by the window and looked out at the stars. His reflection stared back at him, showing a tired face with worried eyes. Behind him, 3 alien visitors waited at the table. Ambassador Sylvan was the leader of the group. Their skin had a soft blue glow, and their large eyes held a desperate sadness. The other 2 Valora stood close together, their hands shaking slightly. Day had seen fear before. He saw it now. Day turned around and sat down at the table. He nodded at Sylvan to begin. The ambassador touched a small device and images appeared in the air above the table. Day felt his stomach turn. The first image showed a beautiful city made of crystal towers. They caught the sunlight and threw rainbows everywhere. The next image showed the same city in ruins. Black smoke rose from broken buildings. Bodies lay in the streets. "This was our colony on Valora 3, Sylvan said. Their voice was calm, but Day heard the pain underneath. "The Krath Empire attacked 6 weeks ago. They killed everyone, 2 million people." More images appeared. Each one showed destruction. Day saw burned homes, destroyed ships, and too many dead. Children, families, everyone. "We asked the Galactic Assembly for help," Sylvan continued. "They said no. Every species said the same thing. The Krath are too strong. Fighting them would cost too much. It is better to let us die than risk their own people." Day's jaw tightened. He had heard about the Galactic Assembly. Politicians who talked and talked but never acted. Safe behind their borders while others suffered. "How long do you have?" Day asked. 3 weeks. maybe less. The Krath fleet is moving toward our homeworld now. They have 50 warships. We have 5 small defense ships. Sylvan paused. We will all die, Captain Day, every Valora. Our entire species will be gone. The door opened. Hana walked in carrying medical scans. She was Day's chief medical officer and one of his closest friends. She had been examining the Valora who escaped the attacks. Her face was grim. The survivors have terrible wounds, Hana said quietly. The Krath weapons burn through everything. Skin, bone, organs. The refugees I treated have seen their families killed in front of them. Some are children. She placed the scans on the table. Day did not need to look at them. He could see the truth in Hana's eyes. This was genocide. June entered next. He was the weapons officer, always thinking about tactics and strategy. He carried a datapad and his face was serious. I analyzed their fleet data, June said. The Krath have superior numbers. Their ships are heavily armed. In a straight fight, we would lose badly. He paused, but they fight in predictable patterns. They rely on overwhelming force. They have never faced opponents who fight smart instead of strong. Day looked at his 2 officers. Then he looked at the Valora. Sylvan met his eyes. The ambassador did not beg. They simply waited, waiting for humans to prove what kind of people they were. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 5 years ago. When other species learned that humans came from Earth, a death world with heavy gravity, dangerous weather, and deadly predators, they became afraid. Deathworlders, they called humans. Too violent. Too aggressive. Too dangerous to trust. Humans had tried to be good neighbors. They traded fairly. They shared technology. They followed the rules. But other species still watched them with fear. No one asked humans for help. Until now, why come to us? Day asked. You know what they say about humans? That we are dangerous. Sylvan's glow brightened slightly. Yes, they say you are dangerous. They say you come from a world so harsh that it made you strong. They say you know how to fight, how to survive, how to win against terrible odds. The ambassador leaned forward. We need that danger, Captain. We need Deathworlders who are not afraid to stand against evil. Silence filled the room. Day felt the weight of the choice before him. If he said yes, he would take humans to war. People would die. His people. And if humanity lost, the galaxy would say the Deathworlders failed. Every species would use it as proof that humans could not be trusted. But if he said no, an entire species would be murdered. He would know he could have helped and chose not to. That he let innocent people die because it was safer. Day looked at Hana. She gave a small nod. She would stand with him. He looked at June, another nod. His crew would follow. I need to contact Earth Command, Day said. This decision is bigger than me. The next 6 hours felt like days. Day spoke with admirals, politicians, and military advisors. The debate was fierce. Some said humanity should not risk war so soon after joining the galaxy. Others said this was exactly when humanity needed to show their character. Finally, the answer came. Earth Command would allow volunteers. Any human ship that wanted to join the mission could go. But they would not order anyone. This had to be a choice. Day called his crew together. He explained the situation. The risks, the odds, the possibility that none of them would come home. Then he asked who would volunteer. Every hand went up. Every single one. Then we go to war, Day said simply. The human fleet assembled quickly. 5 cruisers answered the call. The Resolute would lead them. They were not a large force, but they were ready. Each ship carried weapons designed by humans who understood violence. Each crew had trained for combat their entire careers. As they prepared to jump to the Valora system, Hana found Day on the bridge. She stood beside him and looked at the stars ahead. Do you think we can win? She asked quietly. Day was silent for a moment. I think we have to try. That has to be enough. The galaxy will be watching, Hana said. Good, Day replied. Let them watch. Let them see what humans do when someone asks for help. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, news spread across the galaxy. Humanity was going to war. The Deathworlders had answered the call that no one else would. The Valora system appeared on their screens 3 days later. Immediately, alarms blared. The Krath fleet was already there, surrounding the homeworld. 50 massive warships, each one bristling with weapons. They were preparing to bombard the planet below. June counted the enemy ships and shook his head. We are badly outnumbered. Then we will have to be smarter, Day said. He opened a channel to the Krath fleet. A face appeared on the screen. It was Warcloth X, the Krath commander. He had 6 eyes and armor-plated skin. When he saw the human ships, he laughed. 5 ships? Thex's voice was full of mockery. The Valora sent 5 tiny ships to save them? How pathetic. We are human, Day said calmly. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from Valora space. This is your only warning. Thex laughed harder. Humans, I have heard of you. Deathworlders who think they are strong. You are nothing. Your little ships will burn like all the others. He leaned closer to the screen. Surrender now and I will kill you quickly. Day's expression did not change. Your 30 seconds are up. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All ships, battle formation. Weapons free. Show them what Deathworlders can do. The human fleet accelerated forward. They did not retreat. They did not hesitate. They charged straight toward an enemy that outnumbered them 10 to 1. On the planet below, millions of Valora watched their screens in disbelief. The humans were attacking. Warcloth Thex stopped laughing. These humans were either insane or they knew something he did not. He was about to find out which.